Welcome back to the channel. I was determined not to do any engine work on the bike, but it does seem a bit foolish not to check the valve clearances while the engine is out of the bike. So if you stick around, we'll go through that together. So I'm not sure if the mileage is accurate on the bike. I kind of believe it is, because I've checked through the old MOTs and it seems quite feasible. It just seems like it hasn't done a lot of mileage in the last sort of 10 years. Now this is the chain guard or chain slider, and the bike's done 22,000 miles and this is worn through. So then that makes you believe that maybe it hasn't done 22,000 miles. So the first thing I've got to do is take the pulse coil cover off and the cylinder head cover. Now these two are a little bit tighter because it says on the manual when you put it back together to put a bit of thread lock on these. I'm not sure why these are not the other ones. Maybe it's because it's closer to the cylinder bore and maybe it heats up. Remember when untightening things like this, sometimes they do have a untightening sequence as well as a tightening sequence. This doesn't, but I like to take it off in some sort of order. It does look a little bit scabby on top here, which I wasn't particularly worried about, but now it's off, I'll probably spray it. Okay, now these rubber gaskets apparently are reusable as long as they're not too hard or damaged. Now this one seems okay because they are very expensive. So this is the inside of the pulse coil cover, and this, which is very difficult to see, this is your timing mark. Very, very difficult to see. On lots of other bikes, cars, it's much more obvious than that. So the manual states that we must line up the 1.4 T marker to the timing marker, and also the fourth cylinder must be a top dead centre with the inlet valves closed, which it is now. With the engine out of the bike, it's easy to tell that you're a top dead centre. You can look down the carburettor intake port on cylinder 4 and you can see that the valves are closed. Obviously, if the engine is in the bike, just look at the cam lobes on cylinder 4 and you'll see that the cams are in a more upright position. Now they're not perfectly upright, they're kind of up to the side as opposed to being down, which will then be compressing the valves. Now this allows you to adjust then the inlet of cylinders 2 and 4 and the exhaust of 3 and 4. Then you just rotate it 360 degrees back to the same place, and then you can adjust the inlet of 1 and 3 and the exhaust ports of 1 and 2. So I'm trying to get you in as close as possible here so you can see what I'm doing. So the gap for the inlet is between 0.13 and 0.19 of a millimetre. Let's see if I can get in there without getting in your way. So this is 0.13. Okay, so 0.13 is fitting in. And what you're looking for is light resistance. I'm trying to go for 0.1, let's go for 0.15 then. Okay, that seems to be grabbing a little. Let's go to 0.20. And that's going in with a little resistance. So you just want to feel it grabbing. So I'm just going to jot that number down on a piece of paper. I'm going to try and get into valve number 2 of cylinder 2. And this is, again, is the inlet. Okay, so I've gone straight in with a 0.20. I think that's the same. Just grabbing. Let's try a little bit bigger just in case. Okay, so this is 22.22. It's going in, a little bit of grab, yeah, I'd say 22. Okay, let's do number 4, valve 1 of number 4, and this is 0.13. Okay, so it doesn't like 0.13. Let's try 0.10. That seems like the one, 0.10. So that's outside the tolerance. Okay, this is inlet valve number 2 of cylinder 4, and this is 0.13. So I can now do the exhaust port of 3 and 4. Now this should be between 0.18 and 0.24. That's 0.18, it's not going to get any better than that. Okay, so 0.18 wouldn't fit. 0.16. Let's see if I can get a 0.17 in there. No, it's a 1.6. Okay, so the manual is now asking me to turn the crankshaft through one complete turn, 360 degrees, so that number 1 cylinder is at top dead centre on his compression stroke. Okay, from this position I can now check the exhaust port of cylinders 1 and 2, and I can check the intake of 1 and 3. I'm not going to bother showing you this, as you get the idea from the other ones I've already done. So looking at this chart that I've put the information on, you can see that most of the exhaust valves either need adjusting or are quite close to the limit, and there are a couple of valves on the intake side which need attention. Okay, so on this engine it's quite easy to get the shims out. On a more modern engine, what will happen is this cam will be sitting directly on top of a bucket, as it's called, and underneath the bucket then will be the shim, so you have to take the cam off. On this one it's more like an older style type of engine where you've got the cam follower, which is there. So you've got the cam follower sitting on top of the shim. So what you can do here is carefully slide the cam follower out of the way. So I just set that to one side, and then using a magnet. Now I have got one of those grabby magnet things, but I can't find it, so I've just got a magnet on a screwdriver, and we're going to try and lift that out. There he goes. Just now stuck to the cam. There we are, so there's our shim. Try to remember which way up or down they go. On the manual it tells you to put the right inside down, I suppose, to stop the right in wearing out. Okay, now I also need to get that one out there. So again, I can just slide. No, actually I can't get that one out yet. You can only take them out when obviously the lobe is at its uppermost. So this is in the position that we just adjusted them. So I think I can quite safely turn the engine. But I'm going to go down to this side first. Okay, so the cam in this position. I can also remove this one. Okay, and I also need this one out. Okay, so I now need to rotate the engine so I can get the other ones out. I hope that's got you in nice and close. So we just need to slide the cam follower off. You can see there now, just by putting a screwdriver to the side of it, you can push it over and then just push it down. Little magnet. And out he comes. Now it doesn't matter if you get these mixed up anyway, because it does say on the manual that you can swap them around to get the desired gap that you need. Because there's quite a lot need changing, and they're about £5 each, which doesn't sound a lot, but when you're changing, how many have I got to change? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So potentially I may have to change 11. So that's a substantial investment. Okay. So in this position now I need to get this one out. So again, I hope you can see how I'm going to just pop a little screwdriver in there, slide that across, just push it slightly out of the way. So much easier than having to take the cams off. There we go. Okay, that said, I might as well take the ones out that are on the limit. The end one's a little bit more difficult to move over because there's not much room to play with. Okay, so this one's on the limit, but it might as well come out. Okay, so that's the shims out, and like I say, it's not a particularly difficult job. It's much easier not having to take the cams off. So these are all the ones that I needed to take out. So pretty much all of the exhaust valves. Like I say, some of them are on the limit, like these ones. But I think I might as well do something about it when I'm here. These definitely need adjusting. And out of the inlets, I'm going to have to definitely do something about 2 of them. And again, one or two of them are just on the edge, so as you're in there you might as well sort them out. So there are numbers on them apparently. They may be worn out. If they are worn out, you can measure them with a caliper. Now this isn't a particularly good caliper, so I'm not expecting great results from it. So I tried measuring the old shims using the variant caliper, but it wasn't very accurate. So I ended up going out and buying a micrometer, which was much more accurate. So I've jotted down here the old shim sizes, and then underneath we've got the new shim sizes, which you can work out using a chart in the owner's manual. You don't really need a chart, you can do it yourself. You know, the shims go up in increments of 0.05. So if you look at exhaust valve 1, it is the old gap is 0.18, and I'd like to increase that. So increasing that by 0.05 should put that up to around 0.22, 0.23, somewhere in that region. Now I need to change a lot of the shims, but a lot of these can be reused. So I need 2.45, so I'll have to go and buy those because I haven't got any. And I need 6 2.50s, but there are a couple in there I can reuse, so I probably only need to purchase about 4. And in intake valve 5 of piston 3, I need a 2.65, but I'll be taking one out of valve 7, so there's a 2.65 in there I can put into the other valve, so I haven't got to buy that many. So I've just returned from my local Kawasaki dealer, and I've got myself some shims. I was quite surprised at the price, they're quite cheap actually. I was expecting to pay about £4.50, £5 each, and I needed 6. Actually a packet of 5. Now I didn't need 5 2.45s, I only needed 2. But a pack of 5 only came in at just over £8, and the same for a pack of 2.50s. So just over 16, 17 quid for all the shims that I needed, and I've got myself a gasket. So let's get these on the bike. Okay, remember when you put them back in to put a little bit of oil on them. Now this isn't 3-in-1 oil, this is actually engine oil. Now it's a little bit more difficult to actually get the magnetic screwdriver or whatever you're using to let go. Now this screwdriver has magnified itself with the magnet that I put on it, so it should be easier. Good. Remembering that right inside down. Okay. So that's one in. Repeat the rest. It's a little more difficult getting them in than it is getting them out. Okay, so the shims are a little bit more difficult to put back in than they were to take out. When you put them in, try to make sure they are sitting correctly and they're not sitting crooked. I've put a little bit of oil on them, and now I'm just going to turn it around a couple of turns just to make sure everything's kind of working well. Okay, so I spun it around a couple of times now. I'm going to check the gaps are the same, or the gaps are okay. Now, even though these first 4 valves on the inlet didn't need any alteration, I'm going to check them anyway. So I had that one at 15, let's just give that a check. Yeah, that feels okay, let's do a 16 just in case. Yeah, so that's still at 15. Good, that one's still at 17. Okay, now this one was at 0.22, and by adding 0.05, that should get me to 17. Bang on, 0.17. Just try a 0.18 just in case. No, 0.17. Good. Now the other one didn't need adjusting, but again I will just double check it. So it was 0.17. Good, and still is. Okay, now I can check these. Okay, so the first one was 0.18. Now I've put a slightly smaller shim in by 0.05. So that should increase the gap to 0.23. Actually, it's closer to 0.22. Okay, so is that one, that's 0.22. This one should be 21. Yeah, that's good. Hey, this should be 23. Snug as a 23. Let's try a 22. Yeah, 22. Okay, now this should be 22 as well, or somewhere close. 22. 23. 21. Tight. 0.20. Okay, and this should be 0.20. Yeah, that's not too bad. That should be 0.20. That said, they seem a little bit slack. Let's try 20. 21. It's a tight 21, maybe stayed at 20. Remember when putting your cover back on to clean up the surfaces and put a new gasket on, remembering these 2 bolts require thread lock. Now for some reason I can't find the torque setting for this, it just says tighten up securely. So I'm just going to have to wing this. Okay, so I've done those up nice and firm. I haven't gone mad because I don't want to end up stripping any bolts out. So the only thing left to do now is to get the top cover back on. You can see I've just soaked it down with a little bit of oil just to make sure it doesn't have a dry start. I've cleaned up the surfaces with a bit of solvent, and I've replaced the original gasket, which you can reuse apparently. Just trying to make sure the gasket is sitting properly. Okay, so the manual is giving the torque setting as 7 pounds-foot, which is about 9.5 Newton meters. Which, as you can see, isn't a lot. So that's finished. All I got to do now is get the engine back in the bike and start reassembly. If you like that, hit the like button and press subscribe.